Happy Tuesday. It is Tuesday, January the 16th day of the year. That makes sense. And welcome to another edition of Tuesdays with Thom. Yesterday was MLK Day, Martin Luther King Jr. And I got to watch an incredible documentary last night from Montgomery to Memphis about Dr. King, and it just brought back a lot of things and reminded me of some of the things growing up in Birmingham. I remember always asking my parents why we could never go to Fair Park. And we would pass by there when we would go out on Sundays or what have you. And the carnival, the Ferris wheel and all that stuff was gone and it was lit up. And they never did they couldn't explain why we couldn't go. We all know why we couldn't go then. So yesterday was MLK Day, and here is a citation from the posthumous award of the Presidential Medal of Freedom given to Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King on July 4th, 1977. Martin Luther King Jr. was the conscience of his generation. A Southerner, a black man, he gazed on the Great Wall of segregation and saw that the power of love could bring it down. From the pain and exhaustion of his fight to free all people from the bondage of separation and injustice, he wrung his eloquent statement of his dream of what America could be. He helped us to overcome our ignorance of one another. He spoke out against a war that he felt was unjust as he had spoken out against laws that were unfair. He made our nation stronger because he made it better. Honored by kings, he continued to his last days to strive for a world where the poorest and the humblest among us could enjoy the fulfillment of the promise of our founding fathers. His life informed us, his dream sustained us yet. Again, that is the citation of the posthumous award of the Presidential Medal of Freedom given to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. on July 4th, 1977. Our G-list guest today is historian and college professor Dr. Maurice Hobson, an associate professor of African American Studies and historian at Georgia State University. He earned his PhD degree in history, focusing on African American history and 20th century U.S. history from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. So we look forward to hearing from Dr. Hobson and his historical observations. Our show today, of course, is sponsored by the Best Girl consulting firm. Let's hear from Best Girl.
Best Girl is a consulting firm that provides customized leadership, access and inclusion, public relations, communications, and organizational consulting services. Clients include Fortune 500 companies, utilities, higher education institutions, small businesses, and associations. Best Girl's team of consultants, led by Joyce Gilly-Gossam, Emily Hedrick, and Sean Jones, partners with business and education clients to promote organizational effectiveness, communication, motivation, and leadership, with always an impact on the bottom line. Best Girl's customized consulting services include strategic planning, corporate communication, executive coaching, fundraising, and economic development.
Best Girl customizes the solution that fits your needs. So let's get to our roundtable regulars, Barbara Wallace Edwards and Michael Walker. Barbara Wallace Edwards and Michael Walker, good morning to you. How you doing?
Good morning, Thom. Doing well. Good morning, Michael. How are you all?
Good morning, Barbara. Doing fine, TG. I hope you both are doing well today.
Doing well, just cold.
Let me say degrees. Congratulations to the both of you. You coaches, you went out there and won your game the other day. So tell us about what happened there. You've coached for the Auburn's women's team. So I think you got, what's your record? 1-1 now. So,
1-1.
How was it?
It was awesome, Thom. That was one of the best games I've been to, a women's game I've been to in a long time. You know, LSU came in there and they thought they had that game. It was going to be a breeze for them. I actually stayed. I was in Auburn all weekend there for our Delta's, our chapter's 50th anniversary, and LSU women's team was staying at the same hotel. So we actually ran into Coach Kim Mulkey at breakfast on Sunday morning. And yeah, I said, good morning, congratulations on your defending the NCAA women's winning the championship on last year, and good luck on the game today. And she's like, yeah, it's gonna be fine. I said, oh really? I said, you're playing the Auburn Tigers. Don't count that as a win automatically. She said, yeah, I don't think we're gonna have any issues. So I wish I could have saw her face after that game. But the women, they were fired up. Michael gave a wonderful speech before the game, and I think he got them all ready to play.
What'd you tell him, Michael?
Well, I just tried to talk to him like we would talk to each other before we got ready to play, But one of the things I tried to emphasize was that they needed to play defense, but they needed to get up in their grill and make them uncomfortable, make them doubt what they were trying to do. And as a team together, they would win by being calm, cool, and collective. Be aggressive, but play smart, And I tried to tell them that to kind of watch the way the referees make the first call, because that'll give you an indication of the type of fouls that they are looking for and what they will do. And you may have to adapt your game towards it, Then I made them laugh. I say, you see my guns here? And they started laughing. I said, everybody works out, but you got to win with your mental attitude. You got to be strong mentally and stuff, And I say, hey, this is why you come to Auburn, for opportunities like this. Go out there and seize the moment. So
good deal.
And Thom, that was the largest crowd to watch a women's game in Neville Arena on Sunday. Okay. It was packed. I arrived there, about 12:15. The game didn't start until 2, thinking, there would be nobody there. The parking lot was full. The lines were wrapped around the building, just trying to get in. Wow. It was unbelievable.
Well, the coach has done a good job of selling the program then, huh?
Yeah, she has. I talked to her after the game. She said she just hopes that people will continue to come out, because that meant the world to the team. And that probably assisted them in being excited about the game and, playing so hard, because they had so much support in the building. So I'm hoping that people will continue to come out and watch them and support them. They actually play Alabama this Sunday at 2:00, and also in Auburn at the Neville Arena. And I hope the fans will come out and support them once again, because they need.
Now you guys just had a 1-game contract, so you're not coaching Sunday, huh?
We're not coaching Sunday, but there's been several comments on social media that they need to hire me and Michael full time. So.
Well, good deal.
I have to say this also, Thom. There were quite a few fans from LSU there.
Oh, and,
yes. We talked about. Yeah, they travel. And last week they had a thing called Dress Like Kim Mulkey Night. And let me tell you, those LSU people came in there dressed like Kim Mulkey.
Dressed like Kim Mulkey. Everybody had the sequins and the flashy stuff on. I have never seen so many sequin jackets at a basketball game before in my life.
and we're sitting right down there, right behind the bench, literally on the floor, basically.
Right.
This one guy came by. This brother had on some white pants and one of these sequin jackets with purple and yellow and gold, and it was just shining. And Barbara and Bobby and myself, we looked at each other like, did we just see what we thought we saw?
Yeah, and I actually know that guy, Michael. He's in Auburn. He went to Auburn, but his sister went to LSU. So he became a diehard LSU fan. His sister plays softball at LSU. And so now he follows them everywhere. He supports them like crazy. He forgot he went to Auburn. So really? he follows LSU's, all of their teams, especially their women's teams, everywhere they go. It's unbelievable. And he dresses like that at every event. Softball, basketball, doesn't matter. Yes.
So, Barbara, you mentioned the 50th anniversary of your sorority, the Deltas. You want to tell us about it?
Man, Thom, we had over 250 of our sorors back on campus at Auburn University this weekend. And I actually, since the show last Tuesday, I have been on the go nonstop, back and forth to Auburn. I went down. First, I want to talk about the 60th anniversary celebration of integration at Auburn, and what a dynamic job you did on speaking last Tuesday at that event. Phenomenal job. Thank you so much for all that you did regarding that event. And then we went to the men's game last Tuesday night. Auburn men played Texas A&M and won that game. So that was wonderful. I spent the night in Auburn, came back on Wednesday to Birmingham, had appointments on Thursday, then went back to Auburn on Friday for our chapter's 50th anniversary. And we were going from Friday afternoon to Sunday with events. And I saw people I haven't seen since I graduated Auburn over 40 something years ago. So some had never been back before since they graduated, and it was just a wonderful.
You must have gone Auburn, started Auburn when you were 12 or something.
10.
Oh, okay.
Tom.
I got you.
Absolutely.
Hey, Barbara, somebody told me you shot a video of the commemoration thing.
I did. I went live on Facebook. So it's out on Facebook of the commemoration. And so many people had asked me to do that because they knew they couldn't attend or they had not been invited.
Yeah, I'd like to have a copy of it.
It's not saved on my phone. It's actually out on Facebook land. So we'll have to find that out there somewhere because when you go live, it's not saved on my individual phone. It's out on Facebook, but we'll find it and send that. Make sure you see that, Tom. But yeah, and then yesterday I was in Auburn for the MLK breakfast there on Auburn's campus at the Hotel and Conference Center. And our dear friend Byron Franklin was the speaker, and another phenomenal job. Tom, he paid homage to you and how much you meant to him, and you are his mentor, and he's followed you throughout his lifetime because you came back to Auburn and spoke to him when he was an undergrad football player, and he has followed your career throughout his life, and to you and how much he tribute to you and what you meant to him. And that room was full. There were people from Coach Hugh Freeze, Bruce Pearl, the athletic director, John Cohen, the president of the university was there. Coach Johnny Harris, the women's basketball coach, was there. So I hope that they heard that and how important that was to him and what it meant to him. And hopefully they'll invite you back to come and talk to those teams again right now, because those young men and women need to hear what the struggles you went through and how it helped you and impacted you in your life and how it can help them as well.
We'll see.
Yeah,
I'm glad they were all there. They need to know the history of the university, particularly the athletic history. Everybody couldn't be Bo Jackson.
Right.
You couldn't, for the first 15 years, you couldn't be Bo Jackson. I don't give a damn how good you were. Right. Yeah, that's great. I'm glad. And Byron called me before. He didn't tell me he was going to say all that, but I appreciate him. And,
I just hate I didn't go live with that event as well because, it was wonderful.
And his team won. Well, our team won last night, the Buffalo Bills. So, he spent a few years with Buffalo.
Yes, he did.
So that's it was great. So good deal. Good deal. So they had the MLK thing down there yesterday.
Yes.
Good. Man, you could have seen that film. That thing was so powerful. And how he knew his life was in jeopardy.
And is Memphis to Montgomery? Montgomery to Memphis.
Yeah, and it goes starts in Montgomery with the bus boycott. And as Dr. Hobson told us before the show, he was selected to lead it because he was an outsider and he didn't have any clout in the community. So they figured they'd sacrifice him.
Right.
But man, he had this, he insisted on nonviolence, insisted on, respecting the people who were mistreating you.
Yes.
And there was nobody on those buses. And I forget how long it lasted, but they broke the back of that transit system.
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing in Birmingham with the retail outlets.
Right.
Black people could go in the stores and buy stuff, but they couldn't work there. They had to go to the colored bathroom and all that stuff. So, Growing up, I was a teenager. Well, in '63, I was 13 years old or whatever. And I think two of the most traumatic things in my life have been the assassination of President Kennedy and the murder of Dr. King, and then the murder of Robert Kennedy.
Right.
I was very impressionable. I was when Dr. King was killed. I was 16. It just brought home the seriousness of what was going on. And if you think about it, and they had all this footage of the people trying to vote in Selma, and they would lock the registrar's office so they couldn't get in, and so they would stand on the steps and just gather there on the steps.
Right.
And the sheriff would come out and start pushing them with his baton, and they'd start attacking the people just for standing on the steps, wanting to go in and vote and register. And then as soon as the sheriff would turn back and go back in, they would go right back up there. I mean, I've never seen that type of resilience and
courage.
People
That
were
type of
determined. Courage, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
That truly was courageous on their parts to stand there and know that their life could have ended right then and there. And they were willing to risk it just to fight for our rights to vote.
Yeah, it was incredible. So anyway, well, I'm glad you had a great weekend and got around to see everything.
Yes.
You and Michael were the coaches, so that's great. I think the other big news from last week was Cadillac Williams left Auburn as the coach. He's no longer coach. I don't know. I haven't kept it. Is he resurfaced anywhere else?
Not to my knowledge. I haven't seen anything. And again, down on Auburn, I was asking about it, and no one knows if he's accepted a position anywhere else. There's talk that he may be talking to one of the NFL teams, but to my knowledge, he hasn't been hired anywhere else at this point.
Okay. Charlie Hardy puts in the chat that the protest in Montgomery lasted 382 days. He says he was a participant at age 15.
Wow.
It's incredible. And they showed some of the bombings. They had this footage and from this thing. And it must have been all the footage that had ever been shot because, like I said, it was 3 hours. And it was fairly incredible. What a time. So, Michael, you got anything else?
I do. As a matter of fact, as we've been talking, yesterday was Martin Luther King Day, and he would have been 95 if he were alive today. And I want you guys to just play along with me just for a moment. You all know that I'm a Republican, registered Republican, and dabble in politics. How would you feel if I came out and said Martin Luther King Jr. were Erzat pastor and a communist, and the 1960 civil rights movement was crap, and I put that on Facebook, and I later downplayed slavery and rejected the idea that I'm a part of the African American community, and I attacked the late congressman and civil rights icon John Lewis, and then further, the former president Donald Trump at a campaign event would say that I was better than Martin Luther King. And then I responded by saying I took that as a compliment. How would you guys feel knowing me that I did that? And keep in mind, I'm the lieutenant governor of North Carolina and will be probably the GOP nominee for governor of the great state of North Carolina. Those words came from none other than Mark Keith Robinson, a Black politician who is the lieutenant governor in North Carolina.
Wow.
And running for governor. Those are the words that have been attributed to him on his Facebook post. He has said that slavery wasn't real. that it's a mental thing. He even said, free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we're free at last. Now what?
Yeah, he's the mental case. That's who the mental
What's his
case.
name? I hadn't heard of him.
His name is Mark Keith Robinson.
I've never heard of him either.
Yes.
You know, the thing about, and I know I keep harping on this, but the thing about the documentary was, even though I lived through it, it reminded me of what actually happened during that time. So somebody like that guy can't tell me this didn't happen, because I lived through it and I saw it, and I know that and you know, that guy. You take Martin Luther King, all he talked about was nonviolence.
Right.
That we don't retaliate, we don't strike back, we love our enemies. And probably half the people, if you talk to them today, they wouldn't know that, and they would say something stupid because because of the ignorance level of who we are. And so I don't know. I hate that guy, that he can even get some traction with his campaign.
Right.
Well,
I'm curious, Michael, how old is this guy?
I'm not sure, but by his picture, I'd have to say that he's probably in his 40s or 50s, somewhere like that.
He don't even understand. He
and
you know, no clue.
I wanted to make sure I understood what ARSAT meant, and I looked it up. It's an adjective that says inferior, substitute, artificial. So he claims that Dr. King was an inferior pastor and a communist.
Well, he's trying to get the Billy Bob vote, so that's unfortunate.
Right.
And to me, it's an insult to Billy Bob's.
Right. He's either that guy's either totally ignorant, mentally ill, or like Thom said, he's just trying to win over the votes of the people he know that may think like him. So it's sad, but like Thom said, and Byron pointed out in his speech yesterday, nobody has to tell me about racism. I've lived it. I understand what it is. It's real, and it's real to anyone who lived in that period that we grew up in. This young man, if he's in his 40s, maybe experience it firsthand. Although I can't believe that, but
well, I know that my dad talked to me a lot about it, in addition to my living through it, because some of the stuff I did, like I was able to do because of my parents, going to private school, going to a Catholic school, and in an integration aspect, they couldn't do.
Right.
But they passed on why I was there and what the obligations were. Apparently this guy hadn't gotten that. So,
well, you know, it's interesting. And they have a quote here where in January 16th, 2017, he said, "Hey, John Lewis, just because you got beat up by some Democrats in 1965 doesn't mean you can't get criticized by some Republicans in 2017. You know, he's
yeah, if he said that, I just wouldn't even respond, because that's
right.
You know, that's just, you know, that he's the kind of person Dr. King was talking about in terms of the ignorance. You know, unfortunately, some people will go vote for him. That's where we are.
Right.
With our
and
politics.
the thing that drives me nuts is he is the lieutenant governor in North Carolina and running to become governor. And this is his behavior. And when you look at the country that we're in right now, and the divisiveness from politicians and someone that he considers, I guess, I'm not going to put words in his mouth, but he said that for Trump to say that he was better than King, he considered that a compliment, that he would do this as an African American in today's day and say that how can you downplay slavery anyway? That's just ridiculous. So,
Right.
and people are going to vote for this guy.
Yep. Yep.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately.
So I guess he's trying to take a page out of Marjorie Taylor Greene. She's one of his mentors, I would assume, I guess. And the rest of these people that just go out and spew words, they're not really trying to do anything for the betterment of the country.
You don't have to tell the truth. You just have to talk a lot. You know?
Exactly.
Say the ridiculous.
Right.
Let's move on. Let's move on to Sean. I think Sean's got a minute for us. Sean, you got a minute?
Good morning to everyone joining in with us. My name is Shantia Jones, and this is Got a Minute. Guess what? Well, apparently we are in the golden age of dating. With the rise of technology, not only has our love lives quickly been enhanced, our communication has been facilitated, helping us to find potential partners. Here are 5 fun facts about dating. 1, the longer you spend dating somebody before marrying, the less likely the marriage is to end in divorce. 2, there have been no correlation found between astrological sign and compatibility. 3, a woman's happiness is a key indicator of a successful relationship. 4, wearing red can make people more attracted to you. And 5, men are usually the first ones to say, I love you. So until next time, happy hunting. Thank you all for joining in. My name is Shantia Jones, and this has Got a Minute.
Well, thank you, Sean. Sean's got a Valentine's thing going on.
And I was like, yeah, go Sean.
We have to ask her, who is he?
Right.
Okay, well, let's go to the G list. Hollywood's got the A list, and here on Tuesdays with Thom, we have the G list. Now, G list today is Professor Maurice Hobson. He's Dr. Maurice Hobson. He's a historian, a social scientist, Africana Studies scholar, social justice champion, and producer at Georgia State University. Good morning, Dr. Hobson. How are you?
Good morning. Good morning. How are all of you all?
We're doing well. We appreciate you you being with us this morning. And so, how was your Dr. King Day yesterday?
It was full of service. It was full of service. It was a good time. You know, I always try to sit down and think through, you know, the life and legacy of Dr. King, who made the ultimate sacrifice. And so it's one of those things to where I was really explaining Dr. King to my son yesterday, and I said, you know, what Dr. King did, I said, no one paid him to do it. I said, this was not, you know, about his own, you know, self, you know, aggrandizement. I said, this is service. I said, and he gave his life for that. I said, you know, you got to think about it. His children missed out on their father. I said, you know, his wife missed out on her husband. And I said, so, you know, we have to continue this service. And so, you know, all love and respect to the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
That's an incredible point. I mean, I guess we took it for granted, but he never got any money for any of the stuff he was doing. It was about service. It was about giving to others. And that's just amazing. So now I know you're a historian. You've been involved in Maynard Jackson's story and some of the other stories. You work out of Atlanta, but you work all over. Yes. So where are you now, and what kind of projects are you working on?
Well, where I am right now is I'm at home. It's some inclement weather. They're expecting some ice to take place, and if you know anything about Atlanta and ice, you know we do not do well together. So, you know, so I'm keeping my eyes peeled because my son's school didn't let out, so I might have to go get him at some point in time, and you know that's where it is. But where I am is I've been blessed over the last few weeks. Just sat and did served as a historical consultant for a new documentary with Henry Louis Gates on PBS. In September, I had my own TV show to debut here in Atlanta. And so we're slated for more episodes. I'm expecting 2 new documentaries to come out shortly. One of them is on Freaknik. So when the Freaknik documentary conversation came out, everybody was so concerned. Oh my God! Well, that's not the story we're telling, but you know, it is what it is. And I just finished the manuscript, the official history of Omega Sci-Fi Fraternity Incorporated. And the thing about it is, listen, I'm over here with all these Auburn folks, and I got love for Auburn folks. I like Alabama football, but I like Auburn too. And I'm one of the rare people. But I did see all the beautiful pictures of the women of Delta Sigma Theta, KU, Kappa Upsilon chapter. I got a couple of homegirls who were initiated into that chapter, Sharonda Martin and Anita James. And so I grew up with them. And so it was good to see that. And I also know the good Sigma Delta brothers. And so it's one of those things to where I'm just out here trying to do Black history. I'm trying to, uphold the bloodstained banner and really trying to present ways in which we can do history in our communities. And it really circumvents all of the foolishness that's going on in terms of the hostility towards, African-American history in our schools. We should never expect for our schools to give our children what they're supposed to get anyway. So that's where I am, man. Just trying to make it all go.
Okay. Barbara, you got a question for Dr. Hobson?
I do, Dr. Hobson. Thank you for being with us this morning. The gentleman that Michael was just talking about, the lieutenant governor there in North Carolina, it's obvious that his parents maybe didn't educate him well enough on the history. And I know you're a professor there at Georgia State. Do you encounter that with your students? Do they not really understand the history and what the struggles that our people went through just to get the right to vote? And how do we overcome that?
So, well, this is an excellent question. I don't encounter this man in North Carolina anymore. Okay. But I do encounter an aspect of apathy. One of the things I always try to tell young people is you have to think. And what I mean by you have to think is in order, my late father used to say, in order to bend the rules, you first must know the rules. So in order to get around something, you got to kind of know what you're dealing with. Right. I've taught at several universities, and I taught at this one university, major university in the American South, that has a very much a sordid history of race relations. And I remember one time walking into a classroom and having a Black student who says to me, Dr. Hobson, all that stuff that you teach about, that didn't happen. That ain't real. Mm-hmm. And they didn't teach us that in school and whatnot. And I had to push back. But the way in which I pushed back, it was a tough pushback, but then it was just kind of like, but they won't let you pledge, this particular sorority on campus or whatever. So you try to tell me this, and I was like, do you see these cars would ride through that campus with this big cotton blossom on it, right? And I was like, if you understood, that's why your Black behind is where you are right now is because of that cotton blossom. But then what happens is I push back, but then you have to love on them. So you can get them straight, but you have to love on them. And I remember the young lady had a crisis once and came to me, and she came to me, and I walked with her through that crisis and whatever. Now she ended up being one of my greatest students. But I want to give you another aspect of what's going on in North Carolina. That particular gentleman is playing political theater. Okay. Now, the sad part about it is, and the scripture will read, what does it profit a man to gain the world and lose his soul? Or, if you just get out here, you say anything, right, so that you can get elected. Folks where I'm from say, if you can't go home, you can't go nowhere. So if you get out there too far, you can't come back. Right. But the issue is that we really do have to understand there's political theater, and then there's a political agenda. All right. And some of these lawmakers out here who are stirring the pot and really trying to create these hostilities and whatnot, like, how will history remember you? Because what I can promise you is that we will outlive this. Yes. Society will outlive this. And how will you be remembered? And so the thing with this is, in all aspects of politics and electoral politics, we got to put people first. people over profit, people over politics, people over policy. I respected what Michael Walker said, in terms of, there are Republicans who are fiscally conservative, right? They are somewhat socially conservative, but people are more complicated than those titles. All right.
Yes.
So, people move and shake in different ways and whatnot. So the sad part about it is there are some people who will vote for someone who says those kinds of things. I know everyone on this call was watching what happened in Iowa yesterday.
Yes.
We're watching that with close eyes, right? And so with all that being said, if we could find someone, Republican, Democrat, or anything in between, that will put people first, I think that it would really promote a notion of democracy. It'll give a kind of recentering of this nation. And then we got to deal with some of the sort of issues that have been issues in this country. It's not just about race, it's about class, it's about gender, it's about sexuality, it's about access. And so if we could make things more accessible and really consider the other human experience, then we can move forward.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Michael?
Yeah. I'm glad to have you here today, Dr. Hobson, and I appreciate your response and commentary to that. Since you're in education, I'd like to have you speak on the fact that certain schools, in particular, Ron DeSantis, are trying to outlaw the teaching of Black history. And coming from you, I'd like to hear your position as to why they are so afraid to have true Black history taught in the schools. If we have progressed to where we are now, we had our first Black president, we have our first Black female vice president, and we're moving forward, then what's the issue with teaching true Black history in the schools?
Well, I want to share something with you all. Black America, the American South, from East Texas through Kentucky on into Maryland, on down, that is the heart and soul of what makes the United States the United States. Not just in terms of you'll hear people say, well, Black people built this country. Yeah, that's true. But also the issues that Black people in that particular area, and it's a nationwide problem, but the issues what Black people faced was antithesis on what the United States was supposed to be. And so as a result of this, after the American Civil War from 1865 to 1870, there were 3 amendments added to the Constitution. The first was the abolishment of servitude, to do away with slavery. That is liberty. That's the 13th Amendment. The 14th Amendment is equal protection and due process under the law, i.e. citizenship. Okay? Meaning if you were born in this country, you have all the rights and privileges. You're supposed to have all the rights and privileges of this country and citizenship, equal protection and due process under the law. And then there's the 15th Amendment, the right to vote. So what we're talking about is life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Those 3 amendments were created for Black people, and it is at the heart and soul of democracy. All right? And so this is the thing. Let me tell you, Mr. Walker, let me tell you why they don't want us to teach true Black African-American, true African-American history and a larger conversation. It's because we have to understand, and listen, I am an American. I struggle with all of the issues of being an American and being Black, but this is home for me, and this is where my people are. I mean, I don't shun any other group. I identify as Black, and I understand the Black world in different ways. And when I go there, I feel good. But this is home. I've drunk the water. I ate the food from the soil, the whole 9. This is where things get interesting. In 1860, on the eve of the American Civil War, Mississippi was the richest state in the United States.
Wow.
Between Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia, which was the Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama were the triumvirate of the Cotton Kingdom. And that is the economic prowess of the United States. That's the basis of it. And then you add Georgia on that. I believe that Georgia, those 4 states were responsible for 79% of the cotton production in 1861. When you take the full cotton production in 1860, in today's society, it's worth about $126 billion. That's just cotton. We're not talking about the steamboats. We're not talking about the ships. We're not talking about the mules. We're not talking about the horses. We're not talking about the indigo, the rice, the sugar, tobacco. We're just talking about cotton. And what it helps you to understand is that our laws in this nation that oppress are based on that money. It was based on the fact that, Mississippi was the richest state because of its role as a plantation. And so now Mississippi is the poorest state, but it also has the highest population of Black folk. So what I'm getting at here is I'm making the correlation between when we talk about racism, when we talk about oppression, when we talk about hiding Black history, it makes the United States confront a lot of the issues that some people in our nation have benefited from generations, and they don't want to see themselves differently. This is called cognizant dissonance. Whereas I can present the facts and you say, that's not real because I didn't experience it. And as an instructor, as someone who does history in public, one of the things I always have to tell my own people, my own family, Black people, Black men, it's just because something is not your reality doesn't mean it's not real. So that's the issue, is that it will make the United States, the United States has to confront, a lot of the issues that has often beset us.
Because all of this money that was being generated and made was made on the backs of free labor, slave labor,
of enslaved Africans who were brought here, who were not slaves. They were brought here as scientists. I mean, I want to give y'all just a little bit of a game on this. We all have Alabama bases here, right? Yes. And my brother-in-law, sometimes we go down to Mobile, and my brother-in-law was like, "Man, I have never seen Black people this big walking around." I'm talking about, there's a point in time where Mobile had more NFL players. I mean, just walking through the mall, Joe was 6'6", 275 pounds, ripped. Right. And I was telling my brother-in-law, I was like, the places where Black people were brought in the United States or in the Caribbean is based on the ethnic groups and the kind of science that they did in Africa. So in the Caribbean, sugar was the main crop. So they brought scientists who had cultivated sugar for more than 1,000 years. And these particular Africans had particular cultures. And so that's why you may hear that dialect in Louisiana and East Texas, or on the Gulf Coast. Cotton was another group of Africans that were brought, who had cultivated cotton for 1,000 years. Rice. So what I'm saying is that these Europeans were very strategic in who they brought where in order to maximize the profit. And so when we talk about this, we're talking about scientists, we're talking about doctors, we're talking about storytellers, we're just talking about people. If I were in the condition of enslavement, I wouldn't see myself as a slave. I would see myself as Maurice, and a left-footed kickball player. I'm not left-footed, and I don't, I play kickball, but I'm not left-footed. But I guess what I'm saying is that we can be more than, what society deems us as being.
Yes.
Well, following up on that, let me ask you quickly, what's your position on reparation? And do you think they are justified, or they're valid? Where do you stand on that?
So I do think it's justified, and I do think it's valid. Listen, the United States has repaired other groups that have been oppressed. But I will admit to you, I don't have the solution on how it is to be delivered. And I am open to any kind of suggestions about that. I get asked this question quite a bit. Sometimes, more conservative Black folk will say, well, we should give everybody an education. But we all know that not everybody is built for a college education. Like, not everybody is going in that direction. I've heard other people say, well, Black people should not be made to pay taxes over so much time. But, when you pay taxes, if you're not working, then what does that benefit you? And so I do believe that I do believe that equity should be at the fore, but I just don't know how it would work. I mean, multiple communities have been repaired in this nation, and for Black folk who did not necessarily choose to come here, who were trafficked here, I think that they should be repaired. And this is not to take away from the issues or the experiences of indigenous people here who oftentimes were killed off for land and all kinds of different things. But something needs to be done. I just don't have the answer on how it should take place.
All right, Barbara, you got anything else?
I do. Dr. Hobson, as a historian and educator, you really have become the expert pretty much on Dr. Martin Luther King. And you're a young man. You didn't grow up in the time that Dr. King was doing his work. How did you get so interested in his work and sharing that information with others?
Well, I want to tell you a story. And that's one of the things. That's when I was born in Mississippi in the mid 1970s. I was born in Mississippi. My parents went to Jackson State. My family is from Mississippi down to the coast, and I grew up in Selma, Alabama. And if you've ever been to Selma, Selma is the heart of the Alabama Black Belt. The Alabama Black Belt is the old cotton plantation area in the state of Alabama, which means that it is overwhelmingly Black. Yes. So the Black Belt has nothing to do with Black folks per se, but it's about that brown grayish soil that was very conducive for the production of cotton, which meant that it was extremely lucrative. And if you needed during the antebellum period, if you wanted money, you had to bring Africans to work that land. Right. And so I was 10 years old when the first Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King holiday took place. Mm-hmm. And my mother is a retired social studies teacher. And as children, she would always teach us, we would learn Black history at home. Now, they weren't necessarily teaching it to us in school, but she would teach it to us at home. Right. And anytime there was ever a civil rights thing or some kind of museum to go to or whatever, she lugged us all, put all 6 of her children in the car. My dad would be working. She would put all 6 of her children in the car, and we'd go to this place. Well, the first Martin Luther King holiday, 1986, we go to First Baptist Church in Selma, Alabama. It was at the time it was on the corner of Jeff Davis, Civil War, Confederate States president. It was on Jeff Davis, and it's another street. I want to say Rain Street or something in Selma. But I remember it being a cold, gray day, and I was sad to be Black. Mm-hmm. And the reason I was sad to be Black is based on the Black history that had been taught. Like, Black people have been so mistreated, and here's a man like Dr. King who had fought. He had done all that he could do to make sure that Black people, had, and they killed him, and they killed Medgar Evers. And see, my mother and father, being in Jackson at that time, they remember the day Medgar Evers was killed, and they remember when John F. Kennedy was killed, and they remember when Malcolm X was killed. And so for me, it was like, well, if I'm trying to stand up for myself and then they trying to kill me, then what's the issue? Well, during that time is when I really began to throw myself into African American history to deal with how I felt about it. So instead, I've always been the kind of person, instead of running around it, you just run through it. I still got those old football tendencies in terms of you just run through it.
Right.
Well, and growing up, there was this, they would say this golden age of hip hop, but in the late 80s, Public Enemy, Spike Lee, other folks, there was this real move to kind of look at Malcolm X, and the way in which Malcolm X was presented to the public is a false narrative of Malcolm X, but it was kind of like, well, we don't want to stand around by any means necessary, we'll be violent. And the thing about it is that Brother Malcolm was never preaching violence, he was just preaching self-defense. There's a difference between the two. And so I've become more like, we're not taking this crap anymore, blah, blah, blah. But I went to college, and I really had no idea what Selma's legacy was until I really left the state of Alabama. But when I went from Selma to Birmingham, people would be like, "Oh, you're from Selma. Do you know these particular people? You know, Reverend Dr. F.D. Reese and Amelia Boynton Robinson and all these folks." And I'd be like, "Yeah, I know. You know, Reverend Reese was my principal." Well, this is what happens. My senior year in college, after I was done playing football, I interned for the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute. And I was responsible for putting on the Dr. King program, which meant that everybody from all over the world came to Birmingham, Alabama, went to 16th Street Baptist Church to learn about Dr. King. And as a result of this, what was interesting to me is that how all of these people from India and Nigeria and England and France, they had all shown up to learn about Dr. King. And I saw this picture of Dr. King shooting pool. And I saw another picture of Dr. King where his wife, Coretta Scott King, was kissing him on the cheek, and it humanized him. And I got a chance to really talk with folks like Dorothy Cotton and Abraham Lincoln Woods and Andrew Young, you know, these Birmingham civil rights, Fred Shuttlesworth. And to kind of say, there's a whole different aspect of Dr. King just being this preacher who was on this fan in every church, and everybody's grandmama had this picture. It made him come alive. And I have been blessed to learn more and more and more about the complicated legacy, because the thing about it, and when I say complicated legacy, this is the thing about Dr. King. His notion of nonviolent direct action, or satyagraha, the satyagraha is what he learned from Gandhi, but also is a Russian philosopher by the name of Leo Tolstoy, who brought this notion of love conquers all. What it was is it was a theoretical application of knowledge that had been gained from studying to see how it was going to socially engineer for equality. That's brilliant. And he pays the ultimate price for just wanting what was rightfully his. And so, you know, I've been fortunate to do a lot of work with Dr. King. I tell people all the time, I am the Forrest Gump of Black history. I've just been in all these places where I know these people. So my relationship with civil rights and understanding Dr. King is more organic than it is learned. But when you can learn it and you already have things organically placed in front of you, and you marry those two, I feel like, you know, that's a Kairos moment where God is able to intervene and show he or herself mightily.
Yes. Thank you.
Dr. Hobson, before we go, I got one more question. If you can just talk about, I know you're a historian on quite a few television projects, documentary films, and so on and so forth. I know you were on Maynard Jackson, First Black Man of Atlanta. You were on Atlanta Missing and Murdered, the Lost Children, which is still controversial. And you've also historian on Downing of a Flag, a documentary about taking the Confederate flag down in the state of South Carolina, which has come up with Nikki Haley's campaign or what have you. So can you just talk about what is that like? Do you go, you know, as an actor, you go off and do a job and you absorb yourself into these characters. As a historian, how does it affect you in terms of you?
Well, this is a great question, because on one level, and Brother Thom, I've learned so much from you. It's the funny thing I'm watching a movie in the theater and I hear his voice and I'm like looking up like, well, wait, that's Thom Gossett. You know? And we spend time together, and you know, he's so humble with it. But the thing about it is that, like, when I get into that lane of talking history, see, history can be weaponized. It can be, you can use it. It's intel is what it is. What I do is, because I do the documentaries and TV shows and whatever, it puts you out in public. And one of the things I've learned is, like, I could sit and teach a class of 25 students in a classroom at Georgia State, but am I really making the progress in trying to change society just by teaching in a classroom? And so what happens is my gift, I believe, is that I'm able to articulate these very complicated notions in a very accessible way in terms of language. So, you know, I always think about my grandparents who had anywhere from a 3rd grade to 6th grade education. And if I'm talking on TV, would they understand exactly what I'm saying? Not to say that they were slow on the uptake, but I'll just tell you this. The Maynard Jackson documentary was so cool because I was able to really show Maynard Jackson's family, his children, who he was in an archive. That was, I mean, became more important than me talking about him as what he did. It becomes important that these children and his family truly understand the full scope of him, not just as a politician. They knew the person. I helped them understand the politician, and then they married the two. The downing of the flag. The cool thing about that is, and this is what's so crazy about it, is I was one of those kids on Friday night on CBS. I would watch the Dukes of Hazzard in the early 80s. And, you know, some black people like, that's old, so controversial. I'm not so foolish to be like, I didn't watch the Dukes of Hazzard. I was trying to jump over little ponds and everything with a car, you know, like the General Lee. But I'm sitting on a set with Cooter from the Dukes of Hazzard, right? And it's like, well, man, I'm over here with Cooter, but I'm talking about something that is near and dear to my heart. Like I'm really helping us to understand. And for someone who does history, who does African American history and Africana studies, it really was able to push back against the sons of the Confederacy and all kinds of different things. The Atlanta child murder piece really kind of lauded me some negative attention in terms of because we uncovered quite a bit, there were threats that kind of came out of that, right? And I'm not easily threatened, so I'm not scared of folks like that. But I had to think about my family, and so. But the thing about it is, when I can get on that set, it's almost like you just transit. When those lights come on, you transition into someone else, and I can slow my mind down to be able to talk these things. And I have absolutely loved this. I wake up every morning and I tell God, I can't believe this is my life, because I never in a million years thought I would be doing this kind of stuff. So I sit on the edge of bed and be like, you know, this is, I never thought that I'd do this. So I'm blessed for it.
Okay, well, man, we certainly appreciate having you. It's been great. And thank you so much for everything you're doing out there. And keep doing it, because we need it.
Yes, sir.
People need to know. People need to know the history. I just think it makes things clearer all over. So we appreciate it. Thank you very much for being with us today.
The pleasure is all mine. It's always good to see you all. And listen, I know I got folks when I go down to Auburn University. My man Gumby, Sigma, I know those guys down there. Yeah, I saw him in the pictures, and so
yes, Gumby was there.
Yeah, so it was good to see it, to see those. And you know, War Eagle until they play Alabama in football. but I gotta say,
thank you.
I gotta say this. And I grew up an Auburn fan, and this is when Alabama won the championship in '92. And my high school coaches had played for Bear Bryant. First black players played for Bear Bryant. Is when I kind of made a shift, but I never stopped like in Auburn. You know, I'm starting to realize that a lot of my love for Alabama, though, was really enhanced by Coach Nick Saban. And I'm saying this to anyone who's under the sound of my voice. Nick Saban was a master. That's what I admired about him. He was a master leader. Yes. And I'm pretty sure if you put him in any situation, he would win. And so, you know, I see you guys in the same light. You all keep doing what you're doing, because it's important what you're doing. And you're really helping folks to understand, you know, the significance of what Auburn University has meant to Black communities. And I got love for Auburn. And so, hey, War Eagle until they play the Crimson Tide.
Thank you.
Thank you, Maurice. All right.
Thank you, Maurice.
All right. Y'all be blessed. And thank you all.
Okay. What a powerful information. My closing comments for today, or as I see it, are quotes from Dr. King, 4 quotes, actually. And the first one is, our lives, excuse me, our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter. Our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter. Second one is, I have decided to stick with love. Hate is too great a burden to bear. Third one is, we must use time creatively in the knowledge that the time is always right to do right. We must use time creatively in the knowledge that the time is always right to do right. And the final one is, life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others? And that is how I see it on this 16th day of January in the year 2024. That's our show for today. We want to thank the audience. We appreciate you. We want to thank our G-list guest, Dr. Maurice Hobson. He was absolutely awesome. Thank our sponsor, Best Girl Inc. Thanks again to the TWT team, Barbara, Sean, Emily, Michael, and Joyce. That's it for this January the 16th. Remember, a day without a smile is a day wasted. If you've got an extra one, give it to someone else today. Enjoy yourself. Make every day count. Stay safe. Peace.